All right. Well, hello, everybody, and welcome to this part one of this online lecture, tutorial, or whatever you want to call it, about the use of a logic model flowchart. Now, this first part, I'm going to introduce why we're talking about this and give a little background about the specific project that I am doing in this hypothetical example. And then in the second video, I'll get more specific to the nuts and bolts of exactly the plan as it stands. So what you are seeing here is a filled out logic model flowchart that is from the UW extension, the University of Wisconsin extension. Now, when it's downloaded, it's empty, and I populated it with my hypothetical example. So the reason that I am doing this and asking you to do your own example of a flowchart is to really kind of get you in a position and get you used to the idea of putting your final paper and the topic of your final paper into a format that really focuses on action. So, as I talked about in the first lecture, public health and being a public health professional is by definition a noun, but in reality it's a verb. It's about action. It's about putting your heart and your brain in unison into really addressing what can be very tough issues. So now for your final project, you're going to have to do a paper and a recorded presentation illustrating, telling your classmates, telling myself about the problem, about the issue, but also what you are going to do about it. A logic model flowchart is a way for you to jot down and to really think about and continue to modify what is the logical steps that you are going to take to get at from point A to point Z. Point A being the problem, point Z being your ultimate solution. Now, when you do your paper and when you do this logic model, it's important to realize that you're not trying to solve the entire problem. If you get really specific, maybe you can, but for the most part, it's not about solving the problem so much as it's about really making inroads and making a dent into what is a very serious problem. So the example that I have here talks about alcohol-related deaths in the state of Wisconsin. Now, that is an issue that's a problem in all 50 states, all around the world. People dying prematurely as a result of alcohol related reasons. Now, the one that comes to mind most often is probably drunken driving, both being the person inebriated or being the victim and being involved in an accident. But there are also other issues, alcohol related cirrhosis, which can come from extreme and prolonged high levels of alcohol consumption, but also issues of being the victim of violent crime when someone is under the influence. So, but the point is, there are a lot of different things that lead to alcohol related deaths and premature alcohol related deaths. And this hypothetical example, the one that I'm going to lay out, is a way to address that. So, your job is to take your example and to fill out this chart and this logic model and this flow chart and then send it back to me. The reason that I'm asking you to do this is it's not for me and it's not really a check on where you are. It's an opportunity for you to share with me where you're at, and so then I can give you feedback in terms of where your thinking's at and what plans you may or may not have in place to sufficiently address your public health issue. So the more you give me in terms of filling out this flowchart, the more that I can give back to you in terms of maybe some areas of weaknesses or tell you where your areas of strengths are to really help you. So much about public health is it's knowledge and it's skills, but as we've talked about earlier, it's a way of thinking and it's a way of really conceptualizing things. And when people first do flowcharts, it's can be pretty intimidating because there's a lot of boxes, a lot of arrows, a lot of things like that. And it's like a lot of things where the more often you practice, the more often you do something, the more familiar you get. And filling out a logic model flowchart towards addressing a health issue goes from being something you're uneasy with into something that can be a real tool that you use, not just in this class, but going forward throughout the MPH program and into your careers. So really, take full advantage of this opportunity to fill this out to complete your first crack at the logic model flowchart, so then I can give you feedback to help you as you go in the second half of the class, and complete what will be your final paper. So a few notes about a logic model flowchart. One of the good things about it's very freeform, and there is no one right way to do it. As we'll talk about in the next video, the direction by which you do this can change. Some people go from left to right, others right to left, or all sorts of places. But one of the downsides of there not being one right way to do it is you're never really done with this. So, here's a completed example. All right, I have a pretty well stated problem. I have a long term solution that's pretty clear. But the truth is, if I put this away for a week and came back to it, I would probably change things. I'd tweak things. It's constantly doing that. And so, as you work on this, don't just complete it once, get feedback from me, and then move on to the next thing. Use this as a template for you to formulate what will be your final project for this class. So, with that in mind, I will stop here for now, and we'll move on to the next video, which will focus specifically on the content here of this logic model flowchart. So you have kind of an example of how I thought about it and the process that I go through, but also to give you an idea of what each of these specific boxes and arrows and different sections mean as you go forth and fill yours out. So see you in the next video.